Jan.
And I'm Tracy, and we've been really fortunate to do a lot of traveling and a lot of cruising. And in fact, we have done over 300 days of sailing since we retired.
And it's not just cruising. See, in 2025, we also did several land vacations, which included a month in Europe, scuba diving in Bonaire. We RV'd around the United States, but we did take 10 cruises, which took us to the Caribbean, through the Greek Isles and the Adriatic, across the Atlantic, and even down the Amazon.
So in this video, we're going to rate which of the 10 cruises ranked at the top.
And which, well, we wished would have done a little bit better.
But before we dive into what wowed us and what didn't, let's quickly explain how we scored each cruise. We rated every sailing on a consistent set of categories that reflect what we personally value in a cruise experience.
Yeah, and each of these categories really receives a weighted score. That is because things such as service, food, and itinerary matters more to us than, say, the pool experience. And that's because they tend to shape our overall experience more.
And we also added what we call the excellence bonus. And that's for cruises that didn't just do a few things well, but delivered consistently across the board. It's that feeling you get when everything just works out great on a cruise.
Yeah, and all this really adds up to what we're calling the excellence score. This is a numerical score that tells you how close a cruise came to delivering a near perfect cruise experience based upon our expectations for what we look for in a cruise. And don't worry, we're also going to take into account to the price at the end. So stay all the way to the end, because we're going to list which of these 10 cruises and how these 10 cruises rank in value.
And of course, an important note, remember that this scoring reflects what we personally look for in a cruise.
Yeah, you're going to weigh things differently, and your interpretation of our observations may vary, and honestly, they should. So this also to understand, this isn't a scientific experiment. It's just a structured way allow us to reflect our impressions and help you decide what might matter most to you.
And it's also important to note that although one cruise did rank at the bottom, number 10 of 10, we really did thoroughly enjoy each and every cruise we went on.
All right, and speaking of number 10 of 10, we'll start off with our number 10 cruise, which we're really excited about because it was on a new cruise line, and that was our cruise to the Caribbean on the Celebrity Beyond.
And it was a banger. So embarkation was phenomenal. So from the time we got to the curb until we got on the ship, 12 minutes. And then we had this excellent aft cabin. We did not opt for the endless veranda, and that one had a huge balcony, and it really had us convinced that we were in for something special.
Yeah, well, we were in for something, but I'll tell you, all that magic kind of evaporated once we left in Miami. The ship just felt incredibly crowded everywhere. Sea days, the pool area was absolutely crazy, and we found that getting a seat in the buffet was nearly impossible during the noon hour.
But we did love the entertainment, especially the cast and crew. They had these great LED screens, but honestly, the food was simply the worst we had of the 10 cruises this year, and that includes several mass market lines that are not premium.
And the thing I kept on talking to each other, and we said, is what is premium about this? Celebrity is supposed to be a premium line, and we just weren't seeing the premium in what we're being offered. Now, the good news is we do have another Celebrity sailing. We're going in the Mediterranean on one of their ships in 2026, and we're really just hoping that our time of this Celebrity Beyond was just a one-off aberration. But for 2025, the Celebrity Beyond was our lowest ranked cruise of the year.
Coming in at number 9, we have a cruise on Virgin Voyages, and that was on the Valiant Lady. It's a ship that delivers for a certain audience. Unfortunately, it just really didn't click with us.
Yeah, it really kind of starts with the ship's appeal. It almost has an industrial, almost unfinished feel. A lot of times we'll always have a backup, a ship's pretty. This just isn't a pretty ship. And when we moved into the cabin, while I really liked the veranda, we thought that was great. It had a bed and closet layout that felt more awkward than it was innovative.
But despite that, the dining in the evenings was really, really excellent. It was creative, it was fun, and it was consistently delicious. And we loved the small personal karaoke rooms, which were free, and made for some of the funnest nights we've had. That was probably the best night we had in all of the 10 cruises.
Yeah, no, quite frankly, the karaoke rooms provide a lot of entertainment, as well as the free arcade of 1980s era video games that were there. They were absolutely entertaining. The problem is that the entertainment when you get in the main theater, quite frankly, that show reminded us of a really bad community college production. It just wasn't good. And we found that the ship was way too loud. There wasn't anywhere on the ship in the evenings where if you wanted to have a quiet conversation with new friends, that you actually could do so without all the noise. It just wasn't a relaxing trip.
And that crowded and loud experience did extend itself to Bimini Beach. Very loud, very crowded there. Ultimately, it wasn't the right match for us on Virgin Voyage, but we can see the appeal for the right traveler. Now, coming in at number 8 is a cruise that shocked us the most, Carnival Celebration. We booked this purely to fit into our schedule of 4 side-by-side cruises out of Miami. We were fully expecting the chaos that we always hear about on Carnival.
Yeah, but instead, we actually turned out the one of the biggest surprises of the year, even with more than 5,600 passengers on board. I think we are at 5,630. We could find loungers at the pool, at least with eyesight to the pool on a sea day.
Yeah, so we were in the Serenity area, and that's Carnival's adult-only area. We were able to find shaded day beds open and available. Then you go into the buffet at lunchtime. There were plenty of tables, even some by the windows. And while the lounges were busy before dinner, we could always find seats. That was really shocking to us.
And while the brunch with the surprisingly really good steak and eggs was memorable, we found that the main dining room to be fine but not remarkable, although we will say that the main dining room food and even the specialty restaurants on this Carnival Celebration was actually better than what we had on the Celebrity Beyond the week before.
Where Carnival really shines is in its casual dining. Places like Guy's Burgers and the Blue Iguana and Shaq's Chicken. While they were simple and tasty, they were really satisfying and they were complimentary.
Yeah, now while ranking just number 8 on our list of the year, the Carnival Celebration does win our award for the most surprisingly enjoyable cruise of the year.
So taking the spot for number 7th best cruise of the year was on the MSC Armonia. Now this is the MSC's oldest ship in their fleet, and you can tell that the age definitely shows the layout and the overall design from the 90s.
Yeah, and what really sets this cruise apart from the rest is how European it felt. We were in Europe, and it just wasn't an American-style cruise ship sailing through Europe. It felt like a European experience, whether you're on shore in the many great ports we went to, but also once you continued on board.
Yeah, the food was fine. It wasn't anything memorable, and the entertainment really didn't meet American production standards. Still, we genuinely enjoyed the smaller ship feel, and it really was the itinerary, this immersive itinerary through the Adriatic and the Greek Isles that sold us on this one.
If you care more about the itinerary and the atmosphere on board more than the bells and whistles on the ship, the Armonia solidly delivers, and that's why it lands right in the middle of our rankings.
So in last year's rankings, we put the NCL Prima dead last, and it really did make us question whether we would ever sail Norwegian Cruise Lines again. This year's Haven experience on the NCL Getaway completely changed it, and it comes in at number 6.
Yeah, the Haven itself was absolutely excellent, and the food in the Haven restaurant rivaled what we've had on small luxury ships. It was that good, and the private spaces really creates that sense of escape.
However, once you left the Haven, the ship felt super, super crowded. Poolside service was, I would say, inconsistent, basically non-existent, and the specialty dining this time really didn't impress, and that was a real big surprise to us.
Now, as we've grown to expect on NCL, the entertainment such as the $1 Million Quartet and Rumors were absolutely outstanding.
Ultimately, the strength of the Haven experience carried this cruise in the top 6. But if we had not been in the Haven, it wouldn't be here. But with it, the Getaway really did restore our confidence in sailing on Norwegian again.
All right, so breaking into the top 5 of this year's cruises was a river cruise. That was the Viking Gersemi, which took us from Basel, Switzerland, all the way to Amsterdam in the Netherlands.
So river ships obviously lack a lot of amenities that you see on ocean liners. There usually is no pool, they don't have a theater, and the rooms tend to be smaller. But the itinerary for us was the star, and that's what got it the higher ranking.
Now, we've sailed on Viking several times, and we had on the Viking Gersemi the best food we've ever had on Viking, whether that be a river cruise or ocean cruise. But there were some drawbacks we saw. First of all, in the dining room, the furniture was filthy. It was just stained. It just seemed like it hadn't been cleaned in a year, 2 years, or something like that. Our room, a standard room, what we call a swan view room, we knew it was going to be tiny, but what we did not anticipate is how loud it would be. Because you're actually below the water line, all the noise, such as when you're going through the locks at night, is transmitted through the water right into your the exterior wall of your cabin, into your cabin. So it's pretty loud. And probably most disturbingly is our room steward we had. After 40 cruises we've had at sea and at rivers, it was the very worst room steward we've ever had.
Still, we felt that the food and the lounge service and our warm and engaging program director really did carry this experience high, and it placed a river cruise and the top 5 cruises of the year for us.
All right, so just missing the top 3 spot was our cruise in the Yacht Club on MSC's New World America, which comes in at number 4.
So what was really surprising about the MSC World America was the service. Now, we've sailed on multiple ultra luxury and small luxury ships, but this time in the Yacht Club in the MSC World America provided us the best service we have ever experienced at sea.
Now, not all was perfect. The food was good, but it wasn't really exceptional. And we were actually disappointed with the Yacht Club pool because it really had been noticeably downsized from the previous classes of ships in MSC's fleet.
Now, what did surprise us on the World America was the lack of crowds outside of the Yacht Club. On every other MSC mega ship we've been on, the public areas have always felt very, very crowded.
Now, just like the Carnival celebration, on the World America, there was about 5,600 passengers on board. But whenever we came out of the Yacht Club, we would ask each other, where is everybody? That was the question we kept on asking, because when we would go out of the Yacht Club, nowhere felt crowded. In fact, a lot of places didn't even feel busy.
So we were so impressed that on the very first night of our cruise, we booked another cruise on the upcoming World Asia in the Yacht Club in 2027. So now we get to our top 3 cruises of the year, and the bronze medal goes to our time on the Oceania Insignia.
Now, to be honest, we booked this cruise simply to check off from our bucket list the opportunity to sail down the Amazon, and this cruise delivered far more than we expected.
So the food was classic Oceania. Consistently, it was very good. However, to keep costs down with how much traveling we had done this year, we did choose to stay in an inside cabin, but it was perfectly adequate for us, and that was for 26 days.
Yeah, the only real disappointment we had was the condition of the teak decking that you find on the pool and the sports decks. They were warped, they were waterlogged, and even especially on the sports deck, it actually was a trip hazard in places. And we're really kind of interested now that it seems that the Oceania Insignia is going to stay in the Oceania fleet a little bit longer, is whether Oceania is actually going to do the renovations to be able to replace that. Now, seizing the silver medal for the second best cruise of the year was our second sailing on Explora Journeys, which was the Explora 2.
And just like the Explora 1, the Explora 2 is a beautiful ship, and we think that the food continues to be the best at sea. And notably, the Emporium Marketplace, their buffet, still holds, in our opinion, the best buffet we have ever experienced on a cruise.
Now, on the Explora 2, the entertainment was thinner than what you're going to find on mainstream lines, but the cooking class we had at Salvatore was a highlight. Just Tracey and I being able to be in that beautiful space watching the sea day go by, but while we were learning to make risotto on board was a memorable experience.
And at number 1, by a massive margin, is the Explora 1. So 11 months after sailing on the Explora 2, we returned to Explora Journeys for a 16-day transatlantic. And with that much time on board, you really do get to see the ship's strengths.
Yeah, and those strengths include food that we believe is industry leading. The ship is absolutely beautiful. It just feels like a home that you would want to be in. And the biggest improvement we saw earlier from our earlier sailings, this actually includes the Explorer 2 a year before, or about 11 months before, was the service. It was attentive, it was proactive, and we now truly believe it's truly in that ultra luxury caliber.
So the entertainment was really elevated compared to the Explora 2. So we had a great singer, Nathan James, and then we had this series of exceptional enrichment talks with this guy named Leo Rossi. He was a former tour manager of Fleetwood Mac, which we really loved. This was an outstanding cruise in every sense.
All right, so those are our top 10 cruises, but now we understand we just ranked 10 ships, which ranged from being a river cruise, a mass market ship, all the way to luxury cruise ships, which may be unfair as we certainly paid more for some cruises than we did for others. So perhaps the real question is, which one of these cruises were most worth the money?
And so this is why we created the value score. So that takes a total excellence score and divides it by the price per day for the two of us.
Yeah, essentially what we're looking to see is which cruise gave us the most quality per dollar.
So while we really enjoyed this cruise greatly, the NCL Getaway in the Haven really did rank number 10 of 10 in terms of value.
Yeah, despite a great Haven experience, the value score is held back by the fact that we paid $940 per day cost. That, by the way, those the costs we're talking about is for both Tracey and I, but this is the highest daily price of any cruise we took during this year. And despite the Haven, once you go outside the Haven, the ship seems crowded, and we start looking at everything, the value just doesn't hold up mathematically.
So it shouldn't be surprising that our 9th best value cruise goes to our 2nd most expensive cruise. That was costing us about $840 a day for the two of us.
Yeah, and that was on the MSC World America, and even with the phenomenal Yacht Club service, arguably the best we've ever had at sea, the pricing is high for what you get, especially when dining and entertainment really weren't exceptional. It is a great experience, but it is costly.
And while cost was a driving factor for number 10 and number 9 in terms of best value cruises, there were several other better value cruises which cost less than our Virgin Valiant Lady, and that one came in at number 8. While our Haven and Yacht Club experiences were memorable, just expensive, the Valiant Lady just didn't deliver for us as it might for other guests.
Yeah, and at $588 a day, the good food and karaoke really didn't provide enough value to score higher than number 8. And at number 7 for value was our cruise on the Celebrity Beyond.
So honestly, it was a poor food experience, really did impact the value score on the Beyond. And that cost us almost $570 a day for the both of us.
Yeah, no, listen, we love the entertainment. It was really great. And the cabin was really nice. But at this price point, quite frankly, we expected more from a line that is supposed to be a premium line.
So ranking our number 6 best value cruise was the Explora 2. Now, Explora is luxury, no question. But luxury does come at a higher price, even with a good deal at $765 a day for the two of us.
Yeah, and the Explorer 2's value score reflects a very high quality product with a mediocre Caribbean itinerary for a premium cost.
Now coming in at number 5 is our black sheep of this year's cruises, our Viking River cruise on the Viking Gersemi.
Despite staying in a standard room or a swan view room, this cruise cost $544 a day, but the exceptional itinerary and the best ever Viking food helped push this value score into the mid-range.
And honestly, I have to say this price is a little bit deceptive because the price that we paid, this $544 per day for the two of us, also included international economy airfare for both of us. So honestly, we think the value score may be a little bit underestimated, and this cruise probably should have ranked a little bit higher in terms of value.
Now, just outside the bronze for value lies the MSC Armonia at number 4. Despite staying in a suite, this cruise costs just over $500 per day. Now, this well-maintained ship, combined with this simple, pleasant experiences, offered solid value for travelers such as ourselves who prioritize an itinerary over amenities.
So our top 3 value cruises demonstrate that value isn't always about the cost, as the remaining 3 cruises include 2 of our most expensive cruises as well as our cheapest.
So our transatlantic cruise on the Explorer 1 at nearly $12,000 for over 16 days, averaged $744 per day, and ranks as the 3rd best value cruise of the year.
I have to say our Explorer 1 cruise offered remarkable value for a true luxury level product. There was attention to detail, the food was outstanding, the service was bar none some of the best that we have seen. And we think it scores high because this time the quality does justify the cost more than most luxury competitors that we've seen.
Now, it certainly wasn't cheap at over $700 per day, but it was far lower than the cost of most of its other ultra luxury competitors. And this truly is a case of quality triumphing over cost to earn a value score of just over 16 points.
And then there was the cruise that we went on that really is the definition of getting the bang for your buck.
And that is our 7-day cruise on Carnival Celebration. By the way, this is the only cruise that we took last year that cost us, between us, total cost in less than $3,000, and which worked out to be about $420 a day.
Yet, with its tons of venues and surprisingly manageable crowds, those great casual dining options like Guy's Burgers, that even for a mega ship with over 5,600 passengers, we felt that the value was truly outstanding.
Which brings us to our number 1 best value cruise of the year, which is also the one that cost us total the most at just over $12,000 total, and that actually was in an inside cabin.
However, we just couldn't say no with this 26-day itinerary. It dropped the daily cost down to just over $460 a day for the two of us. Our cruise on the Oceania Insignia, it had excellent food, and the itinerary was just fascinating. It was an Amazon itinerary, and it does top the list of our best value cruise of the year.
So those are our 10 best cruises of the year and how we rank them in value as well. But don't worry, next year we already have 11 cruises booked, and we're going to be bringing you far more reviews and insights as the year goes on.
So to continue on with our adventures, watch this video, and as always, keep on traveling.